along to Yellowstone. Now this was an interesting one because Stuart talked a week or so ago about bison and Yellowstone, and we've talked to you about this on and off through the years because we know there's a lot of strange things happening there with their geysers and all their things that they have in the middle of that massive volcanic area. Anyway, there was a video that was seen of a couple loading a bison calf into their vehicle. Then from there they transported it to a park facility because of their misplaced concern for the animal's welfare. Now, generally, first of all, you should never move a wild animal unless you really know what you're doing, and obviously these people didn't. So one thing is, if it alerts the mother, they will kill you to get to their young. So that was the first stupid thing that they did. Anyway, they took them to this calf to the park rangers. The park rangers tried to reunite the newborn bison calf with the herd. The efforts failed, so they had to euthanize the calf because it was now causing a dangerous situation by continually approaching people and cars along the roadway. Plus, if it was left on its own, it would be left to predators and starvation. So anyway, I was reading on the Facebook page, the Yellowstone Park has a Facebook page, and there was a lot of criticism that they actually put the animal down, but they said they really didn't have a choice, and I understand that. They're not set up to take care of these bison calves or any young. They are really there just to administer the park and let the park do what it does naturally. And there wasn't too long ago, and I saw this video of a visitor approaching within an arm's length of an adult bison in the Old Faithful area. Now the park actually has rules and regulations for how close you should get to wildlife, and they say that you should stay at least 25 yards or 23 meters away from all wildlife, including bison, elk, and deer, and at least 100 yards or 91 meters away from bears and wolves. Disregarding these regulations can result in fines, injury, and death. The safety of these animals, as well as human safety, depends on everyone using good judgment and following these simple rules. Now, with the humanization of animals, people forget these are animals, and these are wild animals, and they're not designed for you to walk up and pet them and do things. And trust me, in my opinion, 25 yards, I don't think I could outrun a bison, an elk, or a deer. And I know I couldn't climb a tree to get away from them. So I wouldn't want to be that close to these wild animals. 100 yards from bears and wolves, these things can travel. You have no idea, and still it's on your tail. So this is really ridiculous. Now somebody wrote in with an opinion saying, do you think that this will eventually be used as an excuse to close the park down from visitors? And I'm saying that's really possible. You know, they want to use every excuse they can to keep you out, and you're giving it to them. So don't do these stupid things. And then in Florida, now this was another interesting article. Too bad Stuart's not here to hear about this one. There is a sinkhole in Florida, apparently, that happened between 2012 and 2014. And scientists have been analyzing their finds in there. Well, guess what? Remember, I keep telling you that they're changing history in front of your eyes, and they're doing it again. Because how long have we been taught that the way that we got people from Russia, from that area, from Asia, was across the Bering Strait, and they just walked across down through Alaska, and then they came down into North America, right? So we've been hearing that forever. Now they're saying in Tallahassee area in Florida that scientists found fossilized dung, mastodon bones, and a stone knife. And they say that it suggests that people lived in the Tallahassee area roughly 14,500 years ago, which is 500 years earlier than they say that the iced-up corridor appeared. So, the ice-free corridor is not our answer for how the Americas were initially colonized, says the anthropologist whose team went searching in the river sinkhole between 2012 and 2014. Not only did they pull out a few stone tools, but they also found one known as a biface that was absolutely made by people. Then they reanalyzed a mastodon tusk, and they say that deep marks in its surface were cut by humans. Other animal bones found at the sinkhole include dire wolf, mammoth, horse, camel, giant armadillo, sloth, and even dogs. So I thought that was really fascinating. But listen, this is even more fascinating. So if the people didn't come by the Bering Strait, they tell you their idea of how they got here. They said that they went by boat down the Pacific coast and came across. So nothing about that they came across the Atlantic, they came from the Pacific. So again, but they are changing history. And then they also said they could have traveled by boat to central Mexico and crossed the Gulf Coast and then gone that way. But again, nothing from the Atlantic side. And of course, it says that this challenges the notion that people first came to the Americas about 13,000 years ago, and there's our number 13. Excuse me. Now here's another interesting study for you. This one says that watching pornography frequently can make you a more religious person. Apparently, pornography sites get more visitors than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. And then it says, despite that X-rated videos remain a taboo, people rarely talk about it or admit having viewed it. But there's apparently a journal of sex research, which I didn't know, but I guess maybe some of you do. It says that those who watch porn more than once a week tend to become more religious. Apparently, when they're exposed to it, it might inspire guilty feelings, especially if you feel you're violating the rules of your religion. So then you distance yourself from your religious activities. But as your pornography viewing increases, then you will find ways to rationalize your behavior or even turn to religion to try and overcome the behavior that is making you feel guilty. So follow that one if you can. So the bottom line is that heavy pornography use may be driving people closer to their faith rather than farther away. So if I have to interpret it, I'd say, okay, we're talking New World religion and ritual. So keep that in mind because mostly my predictions come true. And then here we have a woman who never wanted to have children who wins an NHS sterilization battle after 4 years. A 30-year-old healthy woman wants to have her tubes tied and her doctors refuse. Well, good for the doctors. Because sometimes women, like 10 years down the road, will decide, why did I ever do that? You know, I don't want to have my tubes tied. But the bottom line is, eventually she got her tubes tied. She says she's not against having children, and she wants this option available to everybody. To me personally, it's between a female and her doctor. It's not between the whole world. It's not something to be legislated. And if the doctor doesn't feel right about performing the operation, then I'd say kudos to the doctor because he's telling this person to think about it. You might change your mind in the next so many years. So please think about that. And now, on the heels of that, women who want to have children in their 50s should be allowed to freeze their eggs because the number of women giving birth in their 50s has more than doubled since the year, or has more than doubled. I don't even know where I got this one from. Has more than doubled. I didn't ever finish the date on that, so my apologies, but you'll have to look that up in the link. Anyway, it said healthy women are delaying the start of their families oftentimes until their 40s and 50s, so they should be allowed to freeze their eggs in treatments currently reserved for cancer patients. Now, the thing that was interesting to me was at the end, here it goes, so they've doubled since 2008. According to this article, that there is a soaring demand for egg donation. So my feeling is that's why they want women in their 40s and 50s, or to freeze them for later, because they want you to donate it now, so in case you don't want to do it later on, then they have eggs that you can give for egg donation and they can experiment on. So that's why I think they're doing it, because I don't think that many women in their 40s and 50s want to have children. Maybe 40s. I was in my 40s when I had mine, but I think most people have them earlier, and I think in your 50s, I think, you know what, it's time to get on with other aspects of your life, but that's my personal opinion. And of course, the breast debate continues to go on. We have a Maryland woman who's seeking to normalize naked breasts by walking around bare-chested in public as much as possible. Chelsea Covington, age 27, she spent her last 3 years channeling the top freedom movement. Now, personally, I think there's something better you can do with your time for 3 years than walk around, you know, with your chest exposed, because, you know, life is what it is, so face it. Anyway, I think it's kind of, again, silly, but here we go. And then I want you to remember that I told you a few weeks ago about a man in a hedgehog onesie. And he was in Baltimore. He was arrested, actually shot, for wearing this hedgehog suit because it looked like he had a bomb strapped to his chest, which I think turned out to be chocolate bars, if I remember. Well, anyway, I said, what's with the hedgehogs, right? So somebody sent me this article about Tokyo opening a hedgehog cafe. And apparently it's their first one in Japan. And it says, the owners said, we want to let more people know the charms of hedgehogs. So you get in there, you take your seat. Then you ask for either a specific hedgehog or somebody, you pick one out and the staff gives it to you. Then when you've had enough, you can swap it with another one. And you can also hold lizards there too. It's like, why? And then the owners also run a rabbit cafe in the same building called Miss Bunny. All right? Then, not only that, but while you're there, if you like your hedgehog so much, you can buy one. And apparently they sell up to 10 a day. And not only that, but of course if you buy a hedgehog, then you need a cage, a food plate, a drinking container, a running wheel, a bed, and plenty of food, which the Hedgehog Cafe happens to sell. Now right now on a weekday they charge 1,000 yen, which is about $9.20 or £6.40 for 30 minutes, and the weekends it's 1,300 yen. Here's that number 13 again. Anyway, there is some concern about the treatment of the hedgehogs, and so there's a lot of debate about that, blah, blah, blah. Well, there you go. Hedgehogs apparently are the new thing, so let's see what happens with hedgehogs. Now, here's an article which I think probably they were reading Stuart and my work. It's actually based on a book called Networked Intelligence, which says, guess what? No surprise to you out there. Our DNA can be reprogrammed by words and certain frequencies. That's correct. Reading our work again. Russian scientists have shown that our DNA can actually be reprogrammed by words and certain frequencies. Interestingly, a couple of years ago, new formulas from Russian scientists specializing in biophysics and molecular biology showed that 7% of our DNA has a higher purpose and is not in any way junk. According to newer studies, the human DNA is a biological internet far superior than anything artificial. The research says that directly or indirectly, phenomena such as clairvoyance, intuition, spontaneous and remote acts of healing, self-healing, affirmation techniques, unusual light auras around people, mind's influence on weather patterns, and much more actually exist. In addition, there is evidence for a whole new type of medicine in which DNA can be influenced and reprogrammed by words and frequencies without cutting out and replacing single genes. Our DNA is not only responsible for building our body, but it also serves as data storage and communication. Now this one is extremely interesting because this one is what I talked to you about. The Russian linguists found that the genetic code, especially in the apparently useless 90% DNA, which of course there is no useless part, follows the same rules as all of our human languages. Researchers were able to find out that the alkalines of our DNA follow a regular grammar and do have set rules just like our languages. So human languages did not appear coincidentally, but they are a reflection of our inherent DNA, the use of words and sentences, since words and sentences give out a vibrational frequency like mantras or intonation of language. And this is where I talked to you about the toning and the meaning of the tones, and I teach you about that. The DNA substance in living tissue and not in vitro will always react to frequency vibration of the language provided by the laser beams or modulated light, even radio waves. And of course ELF, remember about that, mind control and programming. If of course appropriate frequencies are used and selected for each substance that you want to reschedule. The team of Russian scientists also discovered, and this is also extremely interesting to me, they also discovered that our DNA can cause very disturbing patterns in a vacuum, which can lead to the production of magnetized wormholes. And according to them, wormholes are believed to be the microscopic equivalents of the so-called Einstein-Rosen bridges in the vicinity of black holes. These are believed to be tunnel connections between entirely different areas in the universe through which information can be transmitted outside of time and space. So lots of interesting things going on right now. So keep your ears and eyes open, because in amidst all the craziness, there is good information which you already know, which we've already told you about, but now they're admitting to it. So you're a far step ahead by listening to our news and by doing your hyperspace oversoul work. And then too bad Stuart isn't for this one, because this might be something you might want to get him for his birthday present, which is coming up, because there is now a Wearcom OMate S3 Senior Smartwatch. This can keep your grandparents safe, it says. It not only tells time, it can be used to make calls, send text messages, track steps, and remind senior citizens when it's time to take their medication. And it has a life alert type of emergency device. So there you go. Nice present for Stuart when he turns 60. And this Saturday we have a blue moon. Now, I've been talking to you about blue moons and pink moons and red moons and all other kinds of moons. Apparently, there's all kinds of moons we didn't know about. So that's the reason I'm just bringing that forward to you, because the color codes are out there. You just need to learn your hyperspace oversoul color codes. So when you have blue moon, technically is when there will be 2 full moons in 1 month. So they talk about that all the time. And this was interesting. I'm going to bring this forward. This was someone sent in for the news about the Eurovision Song Contest that was held in Stockholm. This was one of our Swedish participants, members, and readers. And he was reminding us that in 2 years ago, Conchita Wurst won the talent. It was a huge event, he says, with 200 million viewers. Now, Conchita Wurst, I don't know if you've seen him, her before, but she had on a huge, long brunette wig, a full beard, and a beautiful gold evening gown. So this was the person who won 2 years ago. Now, this year's winner was from the Ukraine with the artist Jamala, which he says he thinks is a weird name since all the other artists compete with their birth name. He says the political reasons for rigging the outcome is obvious, since here we are with Russia is being portrayed as the big threat to Europe, and it is going to be a bombardment against Russia's presence in the Ukraine as the 27 event will be held in Kiev. Immediately after Jamala won, there was a press conference addressing this issue and not the fact that she had just won the biggest music competition in Europe. The song that she won with was called 1944. It's about her ancestors, the Crimea Tatars, who was deported by Stalin during that year. I can tell you that this is not basic knowledge in Europe. They had to dig deep to find it. And then his interpretation is that it was a historical event to make a new again, bringing back the old, which we've talked about that. An artist which had connections and relatives related to that, and that she so conveniently wins the competition with all these components, making this perfect position for the US and EU to criticize Russia. And finally, he says the last points were to be given out, when the last points were to be given out, and Russia and Ukraine were the only 2 remaining competitors. So they waved the win in front of the Russians, and then they gave it to the Ukraine. Now, I asked Stuart about this as well, since this is more his area of expertise, and he said that they did this to aggravate Russia. And also, of course, 1944, and of course there's our 4-4 again. Remember I told you about 1944 is a reference to World War II and Nazis, so perhaps a warning of what may be coming. So, lots of things going on in the news. You have to have your eyes wide open. I will remind you that we have our September Spectacular. It will be more in-depth hyperspace, oversoul information coming your way. So if you like what you're hearing, you want to learn to do this for yourself, you've got to come to this class because it's going to be amazing. 5 new lectures. It's all on the website. We have payment plans available. You want to get your hotels taken care of. It's still a bit of a tourist season here, but not so much as the summertime. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me. Lots of things coming up. My tour to Italy is like 2 seconds away from being closed because same thing with the transportation finalization. I've got like 2 seconds. I'm going to finish that up here in the next day or 2. So basically you're going to have to consider that closed at this point. And you can see Stuart while he's in Europe. And of course, September is our next big event, and we look forward to seeing you at that event because people come from all over the world. It's a great place to connect, get to know yourself, kind of get out of this old routine and make something new and exciting happen for yourself. So thank you for joining me, Janet Diane Swerdlow for expansions.com.